All right. So, welcome to day 2 of our e-learning lectures. We're actually going to start this lesson with a daily question. And I just need you to know it is definitely not a trick, okay? Even though it seems like it is, okay? So, the question is, would you rather live in a district where there was a 100% chance that a candidate from your party, either the Democrats or Republicans, would become your Congress member in the House of Representatives? Okay, again, would be one of the 435 representatives in the House. Or would you rather live in a district where there was only a 50% chance that the candidate from your party would become a Congress member in the House of Representatives? So, would you like to live in a place where 100% of the time your party's candidate won for the House? Would you like it to be where it's 50-50, where it's basically a flip of a coin? Could be every 2 years. You never know. And again, not a trick question. So you can either answer it right now, pause it, or you can answer it at the end. Maybe if you answer it at the end, you'll know too much. But if you answer it right now, then in fact, maybe this lesson will end up being like a aha moment. All right. So if you go to page 2 of the PDF packet, what we want to write down here is that the United States was not designed to be what we call a direct democracy. In a direct democracy, every citizen gets to have input in the government's decisions. We don't. All the people in America don't necessarily get to tell the government exactly what they want. That would be crazy in terms of the logistics. There are so many people in America. Instead, what we have is what's known as a representative democracy. That's where citizens, like myself, like you guys, if you are, again, over 17 and can vote in yesterday's election, or you're already 18, elect representatives to be their voice in the state capitol and in Washington, D.C. So every single person that can vote is represented by one representative and one senator down in Springfield, and one representative and actually two senators in Washington, D.C. Okay, so either Brad Schneider or Sean Casten and Tammy Duckworth and Dick Durbin. Okay, so it's really important to understand that we don't actually get to have input. We elect people who have that input on our behalf. Okay, so that's the way it's set up. But we got sort of a fundamental problem here because it's not that simple. So on the next page of your packet, where you see this really creepy looking, looks like a dragon, but back in the day when it happened in the early 1800s, people thought it looked like a salamander. Okay. So we have this term called gerrymandering, or what I like to call drawing that shady salamander. And when I say shady, it's because when you draw something that looks like the salamander, it's usually because people are up to no good. And the reason I say that whole representative democracy thing, where we choose our politicians to represent us, it's not really that simple. It's because we have this concept called gerrymandering. And it's a practice where instead of voters choosing their politicians, which is the way it was supposed to be set up, politicians get to choose their voters. Now, that sounds really counterintuitive. Our politicians choose the voters? How could that possibly be? Well, I'm going to show you a video, not the most exciting video in the world, but I think a pretty instructive video. And then after that, we'll talk about what this gerrymandering is and how it creates some problems. Okay? Here's the video.
So, you want to know what gerrymandering is? First, let's start with Government 101. In the United States, each state elects a certain number of representatives based on the state's population. The larger your population, the more representatives you have. Each representative represents a district, or a geographical area including its voters. Ideally, we want to have a range of representatives who reflect the political views of the population across the state. But how do we decide who gets to vote for each representative? Let's look at an example. Suppose we have a very tiny state of 50 people. 30 of them belong to the blue party and 20 belong to the red party. And just our luck, they all live in a nice even grid with blues on one side of the state and reds on the other. Now, let's say we need to divide the state into 5 districts. Each district will send one representative to the House to represent the people. Fortunately, because our citizens live in a neatly ordered grid, it's easy to draw 5 lengthy districts, 2 for the reds and 3 for the blues. Voila! perfectly proportional representation, just as the founders intended. Now, let's say instead that the blue party controls the state government, and they get to decide how the lines are drawn. Rather than draw districts horizontally, they draw them vertically, so that in each district there are 6 blues and 4 reds. With a comfortable blue majority in the state, each district elects a blue candidate to the House. The blues win 5 seats, and the reds don't get a single one. Oh well, finally, what if the red party controls the state government? The reds know they're at a numerical disadvantage, but with some creative boundary drawing, they can slice the blue population up such that they only get a majority in 2 districts. So despite making up 40% of the population, the reds win 60% of the seats. Not bad. This process of redrawing district lines to give an advantage to one party over another is called gerrymandering, and it's nothing new. The term gerrymander is named after early 19th century Massachusetts Governor Elbridge Gerry, who redrew the map of the Senate's districts in 1810 in order to weaken the opposing federal.
Now, that's a real problem because they said his name was Elbridge Gerry. It was actually Elbridge Gerry. It was actually called Gerrymandering at first, and then the name changed over time. So unfortunately, even the Washington Post gets it wrong. But I want you to look at a simple district. This is the 3rd district in Maryland. And way back in the 1950s, you can look at it and it looks sort of compact. And then look at it over the years. By 2015, it was this crazy thing in the bottom right-hand corner. And what we understand about gerrymandering is it is done to give a political advantage to one side or the other. As you saw in that video, you can manipulate those blue and red dots depending to give one side a really distinct advantage, even if that side has like a minority overall. So we look at these funky shapes and we got to figure out like, okay, let's look at our own districts here. Well, Brad Schneider's 10th district, not that funky. Yeah, it goes all the way up to the Wisconsin border and then goes out to the chain of lakes to the west and comes right down into Northbrook, like half a block from me, and goes all the way south to basically like past Glenview. Okay, it's not that bizarre of a district. Those of you that are in Sean Casten's district, you go way up in the top right corner and you see Lake Zurich, and then you go all the way out west to Algonquin, then go way, way, way down south into DuPage County. This is a classic example of a gerrymandered district. It was designed to be solidly Republican. And in fact, it was Republican every 2 years for many decades until Sean Casten won in 2018 and changed it. But again, this was gerrymandered to be a Republican district. But this does not compare to what is known as the earmuffs district. Now, it doesn't really look like earmuffs. Probably you guys think it looks like those big Beats headphones. So if you turn Beats on their side, you'll see that way up here is one part of Chicago. And then it goes all the way out, basically towards Elmhurst, where I used to teach. And then literally this line right here is just the median between a highway. That's all the land is that connects it. And then it goes all the way down into the south side, into the south suburbs of Chicago. And this is considered one of the most infamously gerrymandered districts in all of the country. And it was actually designed to make it so that there could be a Latinx representative in Congress, because you have Puerto Rican area in the north side, and you have a Mexican area in the south side. It was actually drawn by the Democrats to ensure that there would be at least one Latinx member representing Chicago. So let's look at this. What is gerrymandering? Okay. Gerrymandering is where the party in power in a state, so this actually happens in the state capital of each state, attempts to secure a political advantage for themselves. So if it's the Republicans, they do it for the Republicans. If it's the Democrats, they do it for the Democrats. By manipulating, we saw these crazy lines definitely manipulating these district boundaries to create what are known as safe districts. There's actually very little chance that their party will lose. A safe district is where we know that a Republican will come out of that district or a Democrat will come out of that district. That's what a safe district means. So as such, the goal of gerrymandering is actually to eliminate competitive districts. It's basically to give one party or the other a monopoly in that particular district. There are so many monopolies in our 435 districts that some years when they're electing people, it's only like 25 to 30 districts are actually competitive. That means over 400 of them have been designed to be safe districts. Now, gerrymandering occurs through the process of congressional redistricting, which we talked about in the lecture yesterday. After the census, every 10 years, they redraw districts based on population gains or losses. So this is an opportunity for the Republicans or the Democrats, whoever controls that state capital, to get with their map makers, do their computer programs, and design these gerrymandered districts. And gerrymandering only applies to the House because you can't redraw a Senate district. That's the entire state. So Dick Durbin, Tammy Duckworth represent the whole state. But Sean Casten, he represents a district. Brad Schneider, who represents a district. Now, Illinois is going to go down from 18 to 17. So we're actually going to see these districts redrawn. Watch out, okay? Because as we know and as we talked about, this is one of those factors that leads to political polarization because there's really no compromise. No one ever has to talk to each other in these districts because you know that one, the Republicans or the Democrats are going to definitely win that district. Now, when they redraw these districts, they can't do whatever they want, even though, as you saw with that Maryland 3rd, it looks crazy, or the Chicago 4th. They have to basically be population equal. So you can't have one district that has 1 million and another district that has 100,000. They try to make it somewhere between like 500 and 600,000 per district, unless you get into a weird state that might only have like 700,000 people, and that might just be like a really big district. And the other one is what we call contiguity. The district has to be just one continuous part. That's why we saw in that Chicago 4th district where you had just that little line running from north to south along that highway median to keep it all together, okay? So that's what we call gerrymandering, and it's been identified as one of the real problems in American politics because it's not very democratic. In many ways, it goes back to that daily question I asked, would you rather live in a 50-50 district or 100%? Many people live in a district where there's no chance that the party that's out of power will actually ever get elected anytime soon. And for some of you guys, you might really like that. And others of you might identify that that's not the most democratic. That's the end of our second lecture. Hopefully it didn't take too long. And hopefully it was all easy. All right. I miss you guys. Bye.